The night over Russia's Krasnodar region was dark and very quiet. The date was November 16, 2025. Most people in the city of Yeysk were sleeping. They did not know that something was coming. Far away, Ukrainian operators had launched a special mission. They sent dozens of small, smart machines into the night sky. These were a new kind of long-range drone. They were built to fly very far, over 1,000 kilometers, without being seen. The drones flew low, just above the ground. This made them like ghosts to the Russian radar systems that were supposed to protect the area. The air was still, and the only sound was the faint hum of their electric motors. These drones were a key part of Ukraine's new strategy. For many months, Ukrainian engineers worked hard to build them. They needed a weapon that could reach deep inside Russia. The goal was to hit important military targets far from the front lines. These new drones were the answer. They were not big or expensive like a missile, but they could carry enough explosives to cause a lot of damage. They were designed to be smart, flying in groups and coming from many different directions at the same time. This made them very difficult to stop. Their mission on this night was to find and destroy a very important target, the Yeysk Military Airport. As the drones got closer to Yeysk, the quiet buzzing sound grew a little louder. Some people on the ground might have heard it. Perhaps they thought it was just a strange noise in the night, like an insect or a distant engine. But this was not a normal sound. It was the sound of a new kind of war arriving. Each drone was a flying bomb, guided by a person many hundreds of kilometers away. They were all moving toward the same place. The airport was a busy base for the Russian Air Force. It was home to powerful fighter jets and helicopters. Ukraine knew that stopping these planes was very important for the war. The drones were almost there. Their cameras could see the dark shapes of the airport below. They saw the long runways, the big hangars where planes were kept, and the large tanks that held fuel. The target was clear. The first group of drones prepared for their final dive. Their journey had been long and silent. Now, the silence was about to be broken. The people of Yeysk were about to wake up to a night of fire and explosions. The war, which felt far away for many, was about to arrive right at their doorstep. This was the start of a major attack that would show the world how much warfare was changing. The Ukrainian plan was not just to send 1 or 2 drones. They used a tactic called a saturation attack. This means they sent a very large number of drones all at once. Imagine throwing many balls at someone at the same time. It is very hard to catch all of them. This was the idea behind the attack on Yeysk. Dozens of drones flew towards the airport from different directions. They arrived at the same time, creating a confusing picture for the Russian air defense systems. The goal was to overwhelm the defenders. Even if they could shoot down some drones, others would get through. It was a clever plan to beat a strong enemy. Russia's defenses at the Yeysk airport were strong. They had advanced systems like the Panzer S-1 and S-300. These are designed to shoot down planes, missiles, and drones. As the Ukrainian drones got close, the Russian systems came to life. Bright flashes lit up the sky as missiles were fired into the air. Machine guns also started firing, trying to hit the small, fast-moving targets. The noise was incredible. It was a chaotic battle in the sky above the sleeping city. The Russian soldiers worked fast to protect the base. They knew how much damage even one drone could cause if it reached its target. Despite the heavy defense, the saturation strategy worked. The Russian systems were good, but they could only focus on a few targets at a time. While they were busy shooting down some drones, others slipped past them. The drones were small and flew low, making them very hard to hit. At least 7 to 10 drones successfully broke through the wall of fire and steel. They were the ones that would do the real damage. Each successful drone was a victory for the Ukrainian operators watching from their screens far away. They had planned for this moment, knowing that some drones would be lost, but that others would succeed. The success of this tactic showed a big change in modern war. You don't always need a big, expensive weapon to win a battle. Sometimes many small, cheap and smart weapons can be more effective. Ukraine, with fewer resources than Russia, had found a way to strike a powerful blow. The saturation attack was a painful lesson for the Russian military. It proved that their expensive air defense systems were not perfect. A new kind of threat had arrived, one that was difficult to see, and even harder to stop. The sky over Yeysk was the first big test of this new reality. The first drone that got through had a specific target. It was aimed at the airport's fuel storage depot. These were huge tanks filled with thousands of liters of jet fuel. At exactly 3:48 a.m., the drone hit one of the tanks. The explosion was enormous. A massive fireball shot up into the night sky, turning the darkness into bright orange daylight for a few seconds. The fire spread very quickly. People who lived nearby and woke up from the sound looked out their windows. They described seeing a wall of flames rising from the airport. The fire was so big, it could be seen from many kilometers away. The explosion at the fuel depot was just the beginning. The fire created chaos and panic. It also served another purpose. The huge blaze lit up the entire airport. This made it much easier for the next wave of drones to see their targets. The hangars, the planes on the tarmac, and other buildings were now clearly visible against the bright light of the fire. The Ukrainian planners had thought of this. The first strike was not just to destroy fuel, it was also to help the other drones find their way. The fire became a giant beacon, guiding the rest of the attack and making the Russian defense even harder. Local people were terrified. Many started recording videos on their phones from their homes. The videos showed the sky filled with the streaks of anti-aircraft fire and the bright glow of the massive fire at the airport. The sound was deafening. There were the initial bangs of the drone strikes, followed by the continuous roar of the fire. Then came the sound of sirens as emergency vehicles rushed toward the burning base. The attack turned a quiet military town into a scene of war. For the people of Yeysk, the conflict was no longer something they just saw on the news. It was happening right in their backyard. The fire at the fuel depot was a major blow to the Russian military. An air force cannot operate without fuel. The Su-34 bombers and other aircraft at Yeysk needed this fuel to fly their missions. By destroying the fuel, Ukraine was not just destroying a building, they were grounding the Russian planes. It would take a long time to repair the damage and bring in new fuel supplies. This single drone strike had a strategic effect, weakening the ability of the Russian Air Force to operate from this important base. The wall of flames was a symbol of a successful and very painful hit. While the fuel depot burned brightly, the second wave of Ukrainian drones reached their targets. One of these drones flew directly towards a large weapons storage hangar. This building was filled with the bombs, rockets, and missiles that were loaded onto the fighter jets. When the drone struck the hangar, it caused another powerful explosion, but this one was different. The first explosion set off a chain reaction. The bombs and missiles stored inside the hangar started to explode one after another. This created a series of massive secondary explosions that were even more powerful than the first one. The scene at the airport turned into total chaos. The secondary explosions sent fire and metal flying in all directions. The ground shook with each new blast. It was like a fireworks show, but a deadly one. Each explosion was a Russian weapon destroying itself. The fire from the fuel depot was now joined by many other fires across the base. The hangar that was hit was completely destroyed, sending a huge cloud of black smoke into the sky. The Russian soldiers on the base were trying to fight the fires and also defend against any more incoming drones. It was an impossible situation. The chain reaction of explosions was a huge success for Ukraine. They had managed to turn Russia's own weapons against them. By hitting one sensitive spot, they caused a cascade of destruction that was much bigger than what a single drone could do on its own. This showed very good intelligence. The Ukrainians knew exactly where the most valuable and dangerous materials were stored. Hitting the ammunition depot was a smart move. It not only destroyed a huge stock of weapons, but also made the entire base extremely dangerous for anyone trying to put out the fires or save the aircraft. The loss of the weapons in that hangar was another serious problem for the Russian military. These were the weapons needed for their Su-34 bombers to attack targets in Ukraine. Now, a large supply was simply gone. It would be difficult and time-consuming to replace them. The attack not only damaged the airport's infrastructure, but also severely hurt its ability to conduct combat operations in the near future. The chaos in the hangars was a clear sign that Ukraine's drone strike was not just a small nuisance, it was a major military event with serious consequences for the Russian war effort. When the sun rose on the morning of November 16th, the full extent of the damage at Yeysk Airport started to become clear. The fires were still burning, and thick black smoke covered the sky. The Russian government tried to control the story. The Ministry of Defense quickly announced that their air defenses had been very successful. They claimed that most of the Ukrainian drones had been intercepted and shot down. They did not deny that the base was hit, but they tried to make the damage sound small. They talked about a fire, but did not give many details about what was destroyed. This is a common tactic to control public opinion and avoid showing weakness. However, the real story was hard to hide. People living near the airport had seen and heard the massive explosions all night. Their videos and pictures were already spreading on social media, showing a very different picture from the official government story. More importantly, satellite imagery provided undeniable proof. High-resolution pictures taken from space a day later showed the destruction clearly. you could see large black burn marks on the ground where the fuel depot had been. You could also see the destroyed weapons hangar with a large hole in its roof and damage all around it. The pictures told a story of a successful and damaging attack. The satellite images also confirmed another key detail. At least 2 of Russia's advanced Su-34 fighter bomber jets were damaged. These are very expensive and important planes for the Russian Air Force. One jet had clear burn marks, showing it was hit by fire or an explosion. Another plane had visible damage from shrapnel, the small pieces of metal that fly out from an explosion. Losing even 2 of these jets is a big deal. They are a key part of Russia's ability to strike targets from the air. Damaging them on the ground, where they were supposed to be safe, was a major victory for Ukraine and a big embarrassment for Russia. The cost for Russia was high. They lost fuel, a large stock of weapons, and at least 2 valuable fighter jets. The airport itself was heavily damaged and would be out of operation for some time. But the cost was not just in materials. The attack was a blow to Russian morale. It showed that even a place deep inside Russia, far from the fighting, was not safe. It proved that Ukrainian technology and strategy were becoming more advanced. For Ukraine, the cost of the drones was very small compared to the damage they caused. This successful mission sent a clear message. Ukraine can and will strike back, anywhere and anytime. The daring attack on the Yeysk Military Airport was more than just one successful mission. It marked the beginning of a new chapter in the war. This event showed that long-range drone warfare was no longer a future idea. It was a present reality. Ukraine demonstrated that it could develop and use sophisticated technology to hit high-value targets deep within enemy territory. The ability to fly over 1,000 kilometers and evade advanced air defenses changed the rules of the game. It meant that almost no part of European Russia was truly safe from attack. This created a new strategic problem for the Russian military. In response to Ukraine's growing drone success, Russia has been forced to adapt. For example, just a few days before this essay was written, in November 2025, Russia officially created a new branch of its military, the Unmanned Systems Forces. This move shows how seriously they are taking the threat. They are now trying to centralize their own drone production, training, and strategy, just as Ukraine did in 2023. Russia is now in a race to build thousands of its own drones, like the Shahed-type drones, and millions of smaller FPV drones. Both sides are now locked in a high-tech arms race, trying to build more and better drones than the other. The drone war is not just about military targets. As seen in other attacks during the same week, like the one in Novorossiysk, Ukraine is also targeting Russia's economy. By hitting oil facilities, Ukraine can disrupt Russia's ability to sell oil and fund its war. This dual strategy of hitting both military and economic targets puts even more pressure on Moscow. The war is now being fought not only on the battlefield, but also in the skies far behind the front lines and in the global energy markets. Drones have become a versatile tool for achieving these broader strategic goals, making them one of the most important weapons of the 21st century. Ultimately, the strike on Yeysk is a powerful symbol of how warfare is evolving. The future of conflict will likely involve more uncrewed systems, artificial intelligence, and long-range precision strikes. The days of relying only on large armies and expensive fighter jets are changing. Smaller, smarter, and cheaper technologies can now have a huge impact. As both Ukraine and Russia continue to develop their drone forces, the sky will become an even more important battlefield. The quiet buzz that was heard over Yeysk on that November night was the sound of the future of war arriving. A future that both sides must now race to master.